Hello friends, welcome back. As in the previous video, we had covered the concept of IP routing with single router to connect two networks. So we are extending the same network in this video to connect three networks together with the help of two routers, and the routers itself are forming another network. So we are connecting four networks through two routers. Let's practice this with a brief introduction of the concept, and then we will have the practical session. So IP routing is the concept of sending and receiving the packets from one network to another. It's of two types, static and dynamic. Static means non-adaptive. So with static routing, the routers are not adaptive to the changes, means the path or the next hop in the routing table is fixed by the administrator and it can only be updated manually. But if with dynamic routing, we can adapt to the changes, means if a new network or new router or new device is added to the network, the routing paths are updated automatically in the routing table. So this is the this lecture is focused on the static routing only. In next video we will be covering dynamic routing. So let's take the example that we are going to implement in this session. We are connecting two networks via this one router and another network, this is third network, via this router, second router, and this is another network, means this is our fourth network formed by the router. So routers are also a part of network, so they are also acting as a node in the network. So here we have total of four networks that we need to connect, and the thing you need to notice is for every network you need to provide the same network ID for every connecting host and to the gateway address of the network as well. So let's start. For the first network I have used 10.0.0.0 as a network ID, and here /8 is representing the number of bits used to represent the host ID, network ID. That means this is the class A address. This is representing class A address, and for the simplicity I am using class A addressing throughout just to reduce any confusion between class B and class C addressing, but you can go with any type of addressing, class B, class C addressing. So here I am using class A addressing only, and the subnet mask is going to be 255.0.0.0 for all the network host, right? So here for the first system I will be providing host ID as 1.1.1, and for another system host ID will be 1.1.2. network ID is same 10. So 10 is the network ID and 1.1.1, and here 1.1.2 is the host ID. Same way as we have used in the previous videos also, I will be using the next address, means the next address as 10.1.3 as the gateway for this particular network. So router will know this network, means router will communicate with this network through this gateway address only. If you have any confusion regarding the gateway, then you must watch the previous video where we connected the single router for the gateways and other concepts. So for the second network we are using the same host IDs but different network ID. So here I am going to use the network ID as 20.0.0 /8 is the number of network bits 8. So here the first PC will be assigned with the host ID as 1.1.1 and the second PC as 1.1.2. Similarly for the third system we are using the network ID as 30.0.0 /8 and the host ID as 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. Okay, similarly for all networks I am using the next available network address as the gateway address. So you can use any unused address of the network as a gateway address, as we have two hosts in the first network, so third is gateway. So you can use .4.5 any ID, any available network as the gateway address. Here also we have used two host addresses, so I am using third as the gateway. Here also third address is used as the gateway. Now next thing is these are also these routers are also becoming a new network, so we need to provide them ID network IDs as well. So here this gateway is the ID of this particular port. Okay, so router will be configured with this gateway for this port, and this port will be configured by this gateway, this port will be configured by this gateway. Now to connect these two ports, okay, as we have connected this, so to connect these two ports also we need to provide some ID. Some ID is required here, ID1, and some ID is also required here. Okay, like here we have provided the network gateways for this port, the gateway is this, for this is the gateway for this port. So similarly we also need to provide some IDs to the routers connecting together through this serial cable. Okay, so here as this for connecting similar devices we were using crossover cable, and for different devices we were using the straight through cable. So here we will be using serial cables and to connect two routers through serial ports. Okay, so here we have defined another this network as 40.0.0 to connect two routers. Similarly for this port and this port we need to define some host IDs within this network. Okay, so here we will be providing this port as 40.1.1 and here we will be providing it as 40.1.2. so network mask subnet mask will also be same because we are using class A addressing here also. So let's start the demonstration. So after providing IDs to every connection, like here this is the ID for this, this is the ID for this, this is the ID for this. So every connection is now having a ID, a unique gateway ID, but these routers are unaware of each other's further connecting networks. Means this router knows about this router and this router knows about this router, but this router, means this first router, is unaware of this network, and this router is unaware of this network and also of this network. They only know the connected routers but not their further connected networks. Okay, so to make the communication possible within this network to this network, we need to define the routing. Okay, because they are not default connected, they are connected via, so this network is connected to this network via this router. So we need to give this information to every router by providing the static information. Okay, that we were talking about, administrator provide the static information. So here for the sake of simplicity we need to provide the routing information to this node. Okay, so here for this router, this network, or we can say that this network is approachable via this router only. So we can say that this is the next hop. Next hop means every intermediate node is the hop in the network path. So for this router to reach this network and this network, this router is acting as the next hop. Okay, so while providing the IP routing, we need to take care of networks only, not the connected host IDs. So here we are dealing with network ID only. So here this router is connecting to both networks 10.0.0 and to 20.0.0 via this router. Okay, so we are connecting these two networks via 40.0.0 network. Also this network is connected via 40.0.0 network. So while providing routing we need to talk about networks. So these two networks are approachable via this network, and this network is 40.0.0, and for this network also we are connected to this network. This router is connected to 20 network with 40 network, means with network with ID via network with ID 40.0.0. Similarly for another router, for this router to connect to this network, any host in this network, we have this as the intermediate node. So this will be the next hop, and this router, or we can say that this router is connected to this network, means this network is approachable via the network 40.0.0.0. This is the network with this ID. Okay, so this router is connecting to this network via this network, this intermediate network with ID 40.0.0. I hope the concept is clear. Means to reach this network for this first router, the next hop router is this. And reverse is also true. Means to reach this 30 network ID, 10 network ID network and 20 network ID network, this router has to go through the network 40.0.0. So 40.0.0 is intermediate network for these connecting networks. So let's demonstrate this with the example. I have already done the labeling, but I have not configured the routers. So let's configure these routers. I have already done the labeling as we have discussed already. So let's quickly define the connections and configuration. So for this first system, I need to provide 10.1.1. Let's copy this, and we also need to define the gateway as we have covered in the previous lecture. Gateway is .3. .3 is our gateway. Done. For this system also, host ID, subnet mask, and next we have the gateway as .3. Done. Similarly for this system, now network is 20. Okay. Network is gateway is .3. In this case also we are keeping the same notations. You can use any ID as a gateway ID, any available ID. So for second system, network ID, gateway, and this is the gateway 20.1.3. Both systems are configured, means this network and this network, our first two networks are configured. Now let's configure the third network. This time I am using the network ID as 30.1.1. Gateway is 30.1.3. .2 subnet mask. Next we have the gateway as .3. Okay, so all the hosts within these networks are configured. Now we need to configure the routers for these networks. Okay, for directly connected networks, then we will connect the router for other routers connected networks. So let's configure this router. So for this we need to know about the connecting port. So let's turn on the preferences. So here I am able to view the port label. So here we are connected through fast Ethernet 0/0. So let's configure this router for fast Ethernet 0/0 port. So fast Ethernet 0/0 is connected for 10.0.0 network with the subnet mask for the gateway as 10.1.3. So gateway, we are configuring these ports for the gateways. Okay, next turn it on, don't forget to turn it on. Now for the next port, this fast Ethernet 1/0, we have configured another network, that is 20.0.0 with gateway 20.1.3. So let's add this gateway and subnet mask. Okay, so both of these networks are connected with this router now. Okay, you can also check by sending a simple packet data unit, but it's still taking time for booting. So by the time we can configure another this router, as this router is directly connected to one network only, so we need to configure it for one network only at the port fast ethernet 0/0. So let's go to configuration fast ethernet 0/0, and the subnet mask is this time 30.1.3. turn the port on 30.1.3 subnet mask and done. So both routers are configured for directly connected networks. This process is done. So you can also check this by sending a simple packet data unit within the network. So I am sending packet data unit from this port to this port. It is failed for the first time, but let's try again. Here we get the successful. Okay, so you may get failure for the first time. Now let's try to connect the host from this network to the router, and the status is successful. Okay, as you can see, the status is successful. Let's check for this network, third network, whether they are configured properly or not. So let's try to communicate within network. We got successful, and this with the router. So this is also connected with the router. So both hosts in the network are connected to router, means router is configured perfectly. Now we need to connect these two routers. Okay, so for that we need to use this serial cable. You can also use the crossover cable, as they are same devices, but with crossover cable we have the distance issue, means for longer distance we are supposed to use the serial cable. So I am connecting the routers through this serial port, serial 2/0, and here also I am connecting to the serial 2/0. Okay, so both routers are connected via serial 2/0 port. So let's configure the routers. As we have already covered, we are going to give this network as ID 40.0.0. So let's label them first. So this network is 40.0.0. Okay, one more zero, I think. .0.0. This is the network. Now we need to provide some IDs to these port as well. Okay, as we have provided the gateways of network here for these fast ethernet ports, so for these connections as well we need to provide some ID. So let's configure the router for these ports. For serial 2/0, I am providing the ID as, for first system I am providing 40.1.1. Okay, let's consider them as host of the new network with ID 40.0.0.0. So here turn it on and the subnet mask is taken automatically. So this router is now configured for this port. Now we need to configure another router for serial port. .1.1.2, and subnet mask is taken. We are turning it on. Now both the ports are connected and the routers are now connected to each other. So just to make things clear, let's hide the labels, port labels. So now both networks are connected to routers, and here also this network is connected to router, and routers are connected to each other, but routers are not connected to the further networks of the connected routers, means they are directly connected to router only but not to their networks. Okay, so we need to configure the routers for their connected routers. For that we need to define static routing. Okay, so you can also check the router is connected to router. Okay, as we got the status as successful, but the routers are not connected to each other networks. So if we try to reach the system from this network to this router, so we will get failure. Every time you will get failure. Okay, so here we need to configure the routers. As we have covered, we need to define the next hop. Okay, so here let's configure this router for these two networks first. Okay, so for this we need to go to configuration, then static, as we are defining static IP addresses, and for routing, as I already told, we need to add the networks only. So our target network is this and this. Okay, so we need to add the path for both networks one by one. So here the target network is 10.0.0 with the mask 255.0.0.0. Okay, so subnet mask we are keeping same just for simplicity. And to reach this network from this router, to reach 10 network with ID 10, we need to have this network as the intermediate network, and this router will be our next hop. So we need to define network only. So here the intermediate network is 40.0.0. so define the next hop as 40.0.0, and this is our destination source. This is our destination network, and this is our intermediate network, and add. Click on the add. Okay, now next we need to connect to this network via this network, and this is our next hop. Okay, so router will automatically found the connected router as a next hop. We need to define the network only. So here now next target is network with ID 20.0.0, and the next hop is 40 means the same network 40.0.0. so let's also add this. So for this router, second router, we have added both the network path, means now this router is approachable or connected to both the networks. Okay, but the first router is not connected to this network, so we also need to define routing for this router as well. So for that we need to go to static routing of this router. I am opening this router, as you can check the label here 40.1.1. so here for the network we need to connect to which network? This network. Okay, so network ID is 30.0.0 and the mask is this, and the intermediate network is same. Okay, 40.0.0. okay, let's add this path. Okay, as from this router we have only one network to connect. Okay, as in the other case we were having two networks to connect via 40.0.0, but here we have only one network to connect because this router is directly connected to one network only. So we need to define only one path for the next hop. So after add, we have added this path. Now both routers are connected and both routers are also connected to their further connected networks. So let's check this with a simple PDU. So here let's try to send one packet data unit to this router, and we got the status as successful, means the connection is active and working fine. Let's also try to connect a network host from this network to this router, and the status is again successful. So you can also try sending the packet from this host to this host and the status is successful. You can also check via the ping command. So I am going to ping from this 10.1.2 to 30.1.1 to the host connected with another router. So as the connection is okay, so we have got the success, as we have no lost packet. So sent was 4 and received was 4, means acknowledgement received for 4 packets. So the connection is done. So hope you learned something from this video. In next video we will be using the dynamic routing with the same setup for connecting multiple routers. Till then, bye and take care.